They called it Liberation Day, April 2nd, 2025. The day America imposed tariffs ranging from 10 to 50% on all its trading partners to drive manufacturing back to the US. Now, the purpose of this advocacy is not to point out the absurdity of imposing tariffs on 180 countries when you have trade surpluses with over 123 of them, or to draw attention to the breach of the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, which provides eligible African countries with duty-free access to the US market for over 1,800 products. It is rather to review the impact on Nigeria and Africa to see the bigger picture. Yes, Nigeria exports goods worth 5.7 billion to the US, 92% of which is oil and gas. The implication of the imposition of a 14% tariffs on goods from Nigeria is a reduction in revenue from crude, which is currently our main source of foreign exchange earnings. But that's not the whole story. In 2004, total trade in goods between the US and Nigeria was 17.8 billion, as against 9.8 billion in 2024. Compare this with China. In 2004, total trade was 1.86 billion, as against $20 billion in 2024. Meaning in 20 years, trade with China grew by 975%, while trade with the US dropped by 44%. The same can be seen all over Africa. In 2004, total Africa trade with the US was $45.6 billion, as against $30 billion with China. In 2024, that figure jumped to $71.6 billion with the US and $295.5 billion with China. When you consider that China is, as we speak, implementing its own version of AGOA with zero tariffs for the least developed countries, it's hard to see why this trajectory of trade will not continue to grow to offset the losses with the US. Whether this was by luck or by design, Africa, with the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, is in a unique position to take advantage of this situation to not only increase trade within Africa, but to negotiate trade deals with new trade alliances that would emerge. Now, today we hear that Trump has paused these tariffs, but we should not be distracted. Free trade must be more than just a buzzword.
So I love this because sometimes it's called blessing in disguise. I'm going to try and throw some numbers like Yinka today. First of all, I think we have this internal victim mentality, Africans in general. And it comes from slavery, and we have this mindset that we are lesser than the West. And that has turned a lot of things that we do, especially when it comes to internal trade. Now, in Africa alone, internal trade is about 15% in Africa. Now, other part of the world, you have Asia is about 60%. Europe is about 70% internally. And then you have North America at about 40%. Why is it that with 1.5 billion people in Africa, projected to be about 2.5 billion, which is a massive market, we don't think that we can sell to each other? I was in Berlin last year for a conference, and this conference was about the Ministry of Education from about 7 or 8 African countries. The idea was to come and pitch to the German government to come and invest in the different African countries. So they're looking at your workforce, they're looking at your educational system to see if you have the capacity for their kind of business. So everybody was there to pitch. And they invited me. I did not understand why they invited me to come and be a keynote speaker until I was on stage. And then when I was there, I had my whole speech prepared, and I was talking about the things that we were doing in Africa and all of that. And at the end, I said, we're all here to pitch to the German government and to all these companies. But the problem is, out of all the 7 means of education that we have here, how many of you talk to each other? None. You guys probably meet each other for the first time. I am here to pitch a solution that we created in Nigeria that even the German government are like, this is amazing, I want to bring this here. How many of you know about it? None. So the moment we realize that the solution, I mean, how did they say it? what you look for Sokoto, live for your Sokoto. That's where the change will begin. We need to understand that we have a market. We're 1.5 billion people that eat food, wear clothes, drive cars, use cell phones. We should start producing and selling to each other and stop making these guys make us feel like we're nothing.
But I also think that we should move away, still going back to what Bryce said, from that victim and corrupt mentality and begin to make these decisions from a place of strength, from a place of understanding, or not even understanding, having vision first, and then understanding what that vision looks like in terms of interpreting it, and then it begins to make sense. Because if we begin to still go into these deals and agreements, just the same format we've had with the US again, then we're going to miss the very opportunity we have now to make a change and get something that is tangible for them, even them as a leader. Let's seize the opportunity.
After it's already there. I mean, the Africa Free...
the last time we talked about it, people said it would take 10 years before it will... Why is it taking that long?
Well, then, talking about free trade, not every country will benefit. And why do I say so? If some countries don't work on their competitiveness, if they don't align with trade policies, if most importantly they don't work on infrastructure, then you will definitely lose out. Sadly, it feels like our country, it's on that side of losing out because we still have a lot of deficit in terms of infrastructure. So I do agree with you. Africa ourselves, we can actually do this. We can push forward.
I'll come to Africa and put what's happening in perspective. Senegal has decided that they don't want to continue with the CFA, which is their currency. They want to find an alternative to that. Niger has just dumped French as its national language. They have picked Hausa as their language in Niger Republic. A lot is happening in Africa slowly, but it's showing that Africa is beginning to see that unless we band together and change the way things used to be, we cannot have that leadership, that independence that we want, and we cannot have the kind of quality of life that we need. To AfCFTA, I like that there is this agreement and the continent is working at it. What I would love the continent to work at, which will also impact on trade, is transportation system in Africa. There is no amount of trading that you will propose to do without a good network of transportation. It's a joke.
The fact that if I want to go to Ghana right now, I have to change my money to dollar just to go and change it to cedis.
Which was what I did when I went to Ghana.
Which is ridiculous, right? You go around Europe to spend the same kind of currency. So I think it actually even begins with the simple things. Do we have one general currency? And then, like Kingsley said, infrastructure. Because if you're going to trade, you need to be able to move from one place. How many? Do we have good roads that connect these countries? Even from here, from Lagos to Cotonou, it's almost impossible.
Whatever you're doing, if it's isolated, then you still have the unity problem. You can't come together to do anything in infrastructure. So there has to be unity of vision and unity of knowing that we are moving forward. Until they have it, I don't know. I
feel like Africa is very divided. Like we don't like each other. We hate each other.
Nigeria,
even within Nigeria, we don't like each other in this country. So.
The word investment points to the fact that value first has to be put in for there to be a withdrawal. There can be no harvest without a time of sowing.
Right, Yinka, and to invest in something, we would first have to recognize the intrinsic worth of it. And Africa must begin to recognize the jewel that it is, pure and simple.